Well, hey there guys, and welcome back. On this week's show, I'm going to show you guys what will hopefully be a successful repair of a bandsaw tire. Well, what we've got here is an older Ryobi 9-inch bandsaw, and I went to use it not too long ago, and there was of course a big bang sort of thing, and then the blade stopped turning and you wonder what the heck just happened. And this is definitely a first for me, but the bandsaw tire itself has just snapped. It's a clean break. I don't know if it was too cold, I don't know if it was brittle, I really don't know what happened with it, but either way, of course, the blade won't stay tracking, the blade won't spin properly, it's just not working correctly without the tire, and it won't, and it never will. So what we're going to do is try to repair this with a little bit of ingenuity. So this is an experiment, this is a first for me. I've never blown a tire on this, but I'm sure as heck going to try to repair it, and let's see what we can do with it. Well, now there are a lot of people that are probably wondering at this point in time, why the heck don't you just buy a new tire? I mean, what are you being so cheap for? And it's not that I don't want to buy a new tire, it's that I've contacted Ryobi, and I've looked up the part number for this tire and with the size of it, and I can't seem to find a replacement. And I've contacted Ryobi because, of course, even on their website, the part number that they list in their manual doesn't exist. It's a discontinued saw. And I've contacted them to find out, you know, is there a replacement number that has superseded the number of this particular part? And thus far I've received no answer. Now, given it's only been 2-3 days, but I don't know, 2-3 days, you'd think you'd get a response by then. It's not like they're a small company. Anyway, I'm not going to get into that. So I think the first thing I'd like to do here is there is a lot, and I mean a lot, of residue and grime all the way along the back of this belt. I'll just show you that. There you go. And it's quite a lot of buildup. So I think the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get some rubbing alcohol and see if I can't clean this belt up a little bit. We've got a little bit of rubbing alcohol here on just a piece of paper towel, and we're just going to clean up some of this residue. There's an awful lot of old grit that's in the middle here. This bandsaw was actually handed down to me, and it looks like this tire could really use some maintenance. That center grunge that's on there, I'll tell you right now, is not going to come off with any kind of rubbing alcohol. I'm going to have to scrape that off. So with that being said, let's try something a little different, hoping not to damage the tire. So what we've got is a 1-inch putty knife, and all of this center grunge that's on here, it's just years of sawdust, and there's probably some wet wood cut on it at some point in time, and it's all solidified in the center of the tire. That certainly isn't going to help with the tracking of your blade by any way, shape, or form. So the first thing we're going to be doing here is just gently, look at the mess I'm making on my sanding pad, that's not good, but just gently scraping all of this hardened residue off of here. And you just want to be careful that you don't damage the tire here, because the last thing we want is to make this even worse than what it is. Although, being the fact that it's cut in half, how much worse can we get, right? So anyway, we're just going to continue on here and clean the rest of this off. And once we get the rest of this residue off, we're going to then hit the wheel with the rubbing alcohol and get her cleaned up. Okay, we've got all the residue off of this wheel. And now, like I said, with the alcohol, we're just gonna give her a good cleaning inside and out, just to get rid of all the any oils that might be on it, or residues, or anything else. Again, I just want to let you guys, or remind you guys, that this is an experiment here. I don't even know if this is going to work. If it works, well, you'll see it on the channel. And you know what, even if it doesn't work, you'll see it on the channel. It'll give you something to laugh at. Say, look at that guy. Did he really think that was going to work? Anyway, okay, so the tire's all cleaned up, residue's gone. And now we're going to get into the repair. Well, I've got my belt here and a scrap of wood, and what I'm going to do is on each side of the belt, I'm going to measure in and put a mark 1/4 of an inch in on each side of the belt. Now, I've thought about this for a long time on how to fix this belt, and I don't know, like I said, if this is going to work, but this is what I came up with. So I'm going to put a mark 1/4 of an inch in from each edge of the break in this belt. I'm then going to take my square, little 2-inch square here, and I'm going to mark a square line across the belt on each side at that 1/4 inch mark. Now once I get that done, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my jeweler's drill. And for those of you that don't know what a jeweler's drill is, I'll just give you a picture here. I'll just, there we go, right there. There's a jeweler's drill. And what this is for drilling smaller, more precise holes. Now what I'm going to do here is along this 1/4 inch line, I'm going to drill a tiny little hole along those lines. I'm going to drill several of them along there, and what these are going to be is pilot holes for our repair. In essence, I'm going to sew the belt back together. So I'm only going to put 3 holes along this line, one in the center and then one in between the edge of the belt and that center line. So that's one side done. Then we'll just turn the belt around, and again we're going to line this up and drill our center hole, and then we're going to go in between that hole and the edge of the belt, or sorry, the edge of the tire. My apologies, wrong terminology there, don't want to confuse anybody. Just like that, and then we are going to put another hole here. And there we go. Now that we've got that step done, now we got to think of what we're going to use to sew this back together. There may be those of you that are wondering what size bit is in this jeweler's drill, and I'll just get the calipers and show you here. This is 5/128ths of an inch, so it's quite a tiny bit, and it is quite fragile. It does not fit in the regular chuck of your regular 3/8 or 1/2 inch drills. It does fit, however, in this little baby. So and for those of you who don't know how these work, you saw me demonstrate it in the last segment, but it has this little cam that turns up and down, and as you pull it up and down, as I'm showing here, it spins that blade clockwise and counterclockwise to drill your hole. Handy little thing, really comes in handy with doing scroll work as well. So there you go, a little segment on the jeweler's drill. Dental floss. Strong stuff. And this is what we're going to be using to sew up our tire. And hopefully this is going to work. I don't know if it will or not, but we're about to find out. So I've stolen or borrowed, or whatever you want to call it, this sewing needle from my wife, and I'm going to place the dental floss through the eye of this needle. Now the reason, of course, that I drilled the pilot holes is there's no way that I'm going to push this needle through this tire. It's just not going to happen. And I'm hoping that these pilot holes are going to serve the purpose. But I can already see right here that we've got a bit of a problem. So now I'm just going to backtrack just a touch. And can you see that? This is the exit holes of where I drilled. And that is going to be quite messy come time to try out the saw. So I'm just going to get a sharp chisel and very gently I'm going to take that little bit of rubber off of there. Well, we've cleaned up those pilot holes front and back of the tire. Quite easy to do with a sharp chisel, and in fact it was a joy to do with a sharp chisel. And if you guys haven't checked out the chisel sharpening with Waterstones video, you should, and get your chisels up to snuff. But anyway, enough of this shameless self-promotion. I'm going to tie a double knot in the end of my dental floss here, just to prevent this from coming through when I start to actually sew this up. So all we're really going to do is we're going to come through our first hole. You have to bear with me here because this is some pretty small stuff and I'm having a few issues trying to see it. There we go. So there's our dental floss through our first hole. So we're going to come up from the inside, and then on the opposite side of our belt we're going to go down through our pilot hole. Now I've kind of considered as to whether or not I should be using some kind of adhesive here, and I really don't know. So for now we're just going to sew it and see how we make out. This may not even work. Once we get that in through there, we're going to send the dental floss up through the same pilot hole again on this side. Again, I apologize for not being able to see, but I can barely see it. So there we go. So we're up through that same original hole that we did in the first place. So we're just going to flatten out the belt so that these edges here meet, and then we're just going to give this a little bit of a pull just to tighten it up to get a good connection. So I know it was hard to see, but I went up through one side, bridged the break or the gap down through, and then back up through. So now that we've got that done, we're going to do a little bit of a crisscross and go down through our second hole here. Can you see that? I know you can't, but there we go. We're just going to pull that through like that, and then we're going to come up through on the opposite side the middle hole. And again, very difficult to see here. My eyes aren't what they used to be. So you go up through there. Now that I've got that done, I want to go back down through this hole. I don't know if you can see what we're doing there, but I'll try to give you a shot of it. But we're getting almost this zigzag sewing pattern here. So I'm going to continue with this, and when I'm done sewing, wrong apron on for that, but anyway, when I'm done sewing, I'll come back and see you. Well, I've got the belt all sewn back together, and now I've come out through the bottom end of it. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go underneath one of these loops here and double back down through the dental floss so that we can tie a knot. And I'll just do that twice, and that should be sufficient to hold it. And that's it. Then we'll just cut off our excess dental floss here that's hanging off. And I'll just show you what we've got. This is our repair. But I don't think I'm going to leave it at that. So just give me 1 second and we're going to go one little step further. The one little step further that I'd like to go is on the inside of the belt, not the outside. I don't want to put a slippery surface out here. But on the inside of the belt, just one width of duct tape. And all that will be for is just to protect these threads. So we're just going to rub it down really well, and then I'm going to very carefully take a box cutter and I'll trim off the excess duct tape from the side. Well, we have our blade completely removed, and we have our repaired tire, or so we hope. And what we're going to do is we're going to get our tire onto our wheel. Now you want to try not to stretch it too much, because where this was sewn, you don't really want to tear it. So we're just going to gently kind of finagle it into place, and making sure that we get it right in the track. These tires actually have a groove in them, and this is much harder to do while you're talking to a camera than it is if you aren't. So anyway, we're just going to get this tire up and over here, this one little lip, and once we get that around there, we'll snap her into place. Again, you want to be very careful. I'm trying to be as gentle as I can because I don't want to stretch and tear these threads. But you can see here now that I've got it on the wheel. I now just have to go around and make sure that the tire has seated properly in there, and it looks like it has. So I'll just get a shot of this here. And while I'm on the subject, I'll just mention that this bottom one as well, I can see has a ton of junk on it as well, just like the top one did. So while I've got the thing torn apart, I might as well take out that belt and clean that one up with the 1-inch scraper and the rubbing alcohol, and then I'll put that one back together. So I'm going to go take this belt off, clean it up, and then I'll come back and show you what this top one looks like, and then we'll get the blade back in her and give her a test run. Just going to show you this tire here. This is the one that we've repaired. You can see the repair right there. It's actually kind of non-intrusive, but it definitely is raised a bit there. So we're going to try it and see how we make out. I'm going to put the blade back in, and we're going to take this for a test spin. We got the blade put back in, and so far so good. I mean, anything could happen at this point. But we'll close her back up, and I'll just take it for a bit of a test spin, and I'm going to throw this on because I don't really know what's going to happen here. So at least I'll protect my pretty face. So anyway, we'll turn her on and see how we do. Well, we didn't do very well. And I kind of expected that, especially with the shape that I see that the rubber was in. I tried to sew it, it didn't work. So I guess I'll wait to hear from Ryobi to get myself a replacement tire for this particular unit. And there you have it. I wasn't going to post this video, and then the more I thought about it, the more I thought there's something to be learned from every single video that I make. And I'm not quite sure what the lesson is here, but I think what it is that tools are not just disposable to throw out whenever something goes wrong, like a tire blowing. And I did try to fix this one, and I tried to do it as safely and with as much ingenuity as I could, and unfortunately it didn't work out. On inspecting the actual tire, it didn't break where I repaired it. The threads are still together, the sewing is all there. It actually broke a little further down along the line. That tells me this tire is rotted. It's had its day and it's done. So I will be waiting for Ryobi to get back to me about this tire, and if not, I will be going on a search for an aftermarket. But for now, we're done with this. And what can we take from this particular video? I'm not sure, but it was entertaining. If you can't laugh at yourself, who can you laugh at? Guys, thanks for watching, and I don't even know what to say. I'll see you next week with another woodworking video. See you later.